constant wars and rumors of wars. Now, you would say, well, there's always been wars. Yes, that's true. There's always been places of the conflict in the world and throughout history. In fact, most historians would say there's only been about a period of about 40 to 50 years in the last 2,000 years where there hasn't been a war or a conflict in the world. But Jesus said before he returns, there will be an uprising of wars globally. When was the first major global war? Anybody know? The first major global war. World War I. Nothing like in the history of mankind has ever happened since at that time. World War I was the first time nations from around the world joined together, attacking each other, and brought upon the death of millions. It's a terrible war. But not to be outdone, a few years later, the world went again. World War II. More awful and more violent and more treacherous than anything we've ever seen before. And the world's always said, will there be a World War III? Will there ever be? Well, since then, we've had tremendous wars. Korean War, Vietnam War, and many, many, many others. That's, as an American, not that the world revolves around us, but the Iraqi War. But we've been in part of major wars, major conflicts. Wars in Afghanistan, wars in Africa, wars in Asia, on and on and on and on. And now we see, again, the world uprising and ready for war. But this time is not with muskets and it's not with gunpowder. This time is nuclear radioactive material that can be put on a nuclear warhead, on a missile that can travel from North Korea to San Francisco with no problem. Unlike anything we've ever seen before. Eisenhower, MacArthur, never would have seen anything like that. We do. The Russian airplane that went through the U.S., the carrier, the Donald Cook destroyer, scared a lot of Americans, scared a lot of Russians. In fact, Russians are very, very scared of why the U.S. didn't say anything, didn't say a word about it, didn't retaliate, nothing. And it makes the world think, and Russians think, that the U.S. will not do anything if something is of a scare tactic. Now, this was strictly a scare tactic. There was nothing intentional that was going to result in a war. The Russian planes were simply making a false attack, you would say. But the Russian and Chinese and North Koreans' attack against a U.S. nuclear carrier might not be turned out to be that fake one day, is what the news are saying. Don't think that just because they did it and it's a fake, oh, don't worry about it, they always do this. President Obama and Secretary John Kerry will have to play the real intentional politics with all of our lives at risk. This is a very, very interesting time in our world. What are they going to do? Will they retaliate? Will they do something? The world is holding their breath. And the reason why is because we also send F-22 to Romania, because Russia is building their military base by the Black Sea. And we know that they have submarines that can reach up to the California coast, warships in the Baltic Sea. NATO is freaking out about the fact that Russia has been building their base so close to the Romanian border. All that to say, it may not affect you tonight or tomorrow, but it will say this: the world is holding their breath tonight to see what the U.S. is going to do with Russia, China, North Korea, and I'll give you a little bit more on it, because China has already said that they could obliterate Western cities like the UK, west coast of the United States, within 30 minutes because of their long-range missiles. In fact, the People's Republic of China fired a nuke called the Dongfeng 41, longest range of any missile in the world. It can carry 10 warheads, distance about 7,400 miles, in just a half hour before hitting several targets at once. This could mean Beijing will destroy London as well as other Western cities 5,000 miles away from the Chinese capital. It's amazing the capabilities that they have. I'm not going to go into the details of how they got this technology because it's amazing how they were able to build this up within the last 1990. When was Clinton president? 88 to 92 or something like that? No, 92 to 90, 2001. Okay. Well, there you have it. That's why they have it. Enough said. You want to know why they got it? You got to go back to that presidency to really know how they have all those incredible military technology that we openly gave. So nonetheless, the U.S. retaliates, of course, and it says we have a hypersonic nuclear missile that we can use against China. And don't think for a moment, yay, we're safe, because China, as well as Russia, are also working on a hypersonic missile. It's a race war. It's a war that is going to end up in someone attacking someone. No country spends billions of dollars of ammunition, technology, science, resource, just to have it for display. And eventually, the Bible tells us, Revelation 16, it all converges into one thing, the battle against Israel in Armageddon. There's small battles along the way. It's a campaign. It's a constant, it's a domino effect. One war leads to the other, but there's a major war, and then another major war, and then all leads to the time when Jesus comes back, the war of Armageddon. That's what Jesus said. These wars and rumors of war, it'll escalate. In the book of Revelation, we're told in Revelation 6, one of the seals that's broken, it's war. There's war that happens in our world, in our nation, and in the world. North Korea just launched missiles. And of course, if you know anybody from South Korea, they're wonderful believers in South Korea. There's a tremendous holding of their breath tonight because this Saturday, North Korea just launched a couple of missile attacks. They were just for show, sort of to know what they have. And one U.S. official said on Saturday, this attack was proactive. It wasn't an attack on South Korea, but it was a launch of one of their missiles. South Korea is on high alert tonight. The capabilities of launching from submarines, North Korean submarines, is a very real threat. Following the test, South Korea's military is very much an alert tonight. But it's not just them. Oh, by the way, Obama says, don't worry about North Korea. It's not a big deal. We have to worry about climate change and transgender bathrooms. That's really the problem in America. Get those things out of your mind. Forget China's missile that can reach the west coast of the United States in 30 minutes. Forget North Korea and their ballistic missiles attack on South Korea. We have to worry about climate change and transgender bathrooms. That's the real threat in our country. And we have to make sure we punish those who are against those things. And by the way, that is what they said. If you're against climate change, they can use the RICO Act on you. Now, RICO is not your cousin Rico from Chino. RICO is the Racketeering Act. Basically, if you have false advertisement, if you're trying to promote false things, they can throw the RICO Act on you. And they actually imprison you if you're a denier. And of course, I'll show you in a moment about those who come against the transgender bathroom law are being threatened again. But that's not them. Japan, it's also coming into place. Look, South Korea, North Korea, it's too close for us. We have to ramp up our military capabilities. And in fact, so much so, China got involved and China said, Japan is going too fast on this nuclear military thing. In fact, look at what Japan did. What they did is that they enacted a controversial law on Tuesday, last Tuesday. Following the Japanese troops, there's a law that Japanese troops could not fight outside Japanese soil. That's been their law for a long time. Yeah, was that a 60 years or so? Yeah. They cannot fight outside their soil. So basically, it's simply a defense. They only can have defense. They can't be an aggressor. Well, that's gone. And Japan has removed it. They have now given the military the opportunity, clear that they could attack outside Japanese soil. That's very interesting. China said, wait a minute, what are you guys doing? Well, here's the pot calling the kettle black. China has been aggressive against Japan, aggressive against South Korea, and of course, North Korea is their sort of bulldog in that area. But it's not just them. It's not just them. It's India and Pakistan. It's India and Pakistan are holding war games against each other. Pakistan being so little and India being so big, but Pakistan has more nuclear weapons than India does. And India is very concerned. Why? Not just the nuclear weapons, but the attacks, the terrorist attacks that happen against India. Remember the attack about 4 years ago in the Indian, I know it wasn't a train station, but it was in New Delhi. And they went into the Jewish center and they do all these massive murder in subways. Well, that was conducted by Pakistan. And India says, if you do that again, we're going to nuke you. And of course, India is very concerned that Pakistan has never retracted from that, never apologized or retracted from it. So they believe a major attack will come against India by Pakistan, terrorism, which could ignite a nuclear war with India. Now, if you think Pakistan doesn't have nuclear weapons, one of the highest countries with nuclear weapons, and just recently India did a 30,000 soldier exercise on the border between Pakistan and India. Now, you don't do that because you just want to get some fresh air. You do that because you want to show and flex your muscles against your rival. Now, enough about wars. You ever seen the movie Gattaca? A long time ago. Some of you guys probably weren't even born. But Gattaca was a movie with Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman, all this stuff about the future, how DNA will determine where you work, where you live, who you are, and what you do. Well, it is no longer going to be a science fiction movie. Kuwait is the first country in the world that is going to regulate visitors, as well as their own citizens, with DNA testing, meaning that when you come into Kuwait, you're going to have to do a swab, and they're going to put it on their database. And all the citizens of that country will also be in a database. You know what a swab is, right? DNA, cheek, things like that, okay, or hair. And they will know who you are, and it's high security. It's because they don't want any terrorists going in there. And it's not going to be used for criminal purposes, they said. Oh, no, we're not going to criminalize anybody. We just want to protect everybody. And of course, that's going to be, that's what they say now. But the new assembly passed the DNA test last year, and it's now being implemented now. So if you are traveling to Kuwait for vacation, before you actually enter the country and go through customs, you're going to have to do a swab. And they're going to put your, not name, your DNA on a database. So if you ever do something bad, you don't even have to track your name. They'll just know where you are, who you are, based on DNA. DNA is who you are, right? DNA is what you do. It's what basically, that's what the movie was about. Gattaca. So one interesting thing about the article says this law is the first of its kind in the world. Kuwait is the first country worldwide to apply the system. More to come. More to come. Now, there is biometric screening in some parts of the border between Mexico and the U.S. There are some, not all of them, where you have to go up to a booth and you have to, they have to scan your iris, your eyes, and you can go in. Now, this is a little bit different, but it has the same type of database. They're no longer going to keep track of names, but track of, I guess names, but not by written names. It's going to be through major identification, including iris test and DNA. Let's go to the next section as we continue to finish this, moving quickly. Dostoevsky, anybody know his Russian writer, Dostoevsky? Incredible writer. He said this: if God doesn't exist, everything is permitted. If God doesn't exist, everything is permitted. He was absolutely right about that. I'm not sure he was a Christian, but he wrote a lot about God and things like that. He was a Russian author. Emil Kammerit, which is a very famous Belgian playwright, had also an interesting quote in our day and age. He said this: when men choose not to believe in God, They do not thereafter believe in nothing. They then become capable of believing in anything. Very well said. I'll repeat it again because it's worth noting. When men choose not to believe in God, they do not thereafter believe in nothing. They then become capable of believing in anything. See that? It's not that people stop believing in God and they become, he's just an atheist, doesn't believe in anything. And actually they'd be, or believe in nothing. They actually can believe in anything that is beyond rationale. Well, when our nation and Western nations, happens to be in Europe, this is in an area called Brighton and Hove in England. They actually have these transgender inclusion school toolkits that they're being used. I'm not saying they're being used down in San Bernardino or Rancho Cucamonga or anything like that, but this is in England, but this is what they're capable of doing. You take this toolkit home and you discuss it with your son or daughter, and you ask them, what do you think you are? Are you a boy? Are you a girl? And how do you feel about it? And do you feel like a boy today? And of course, as a 4-year-old, you don't really understand. I have kids. I've had kids that age in my house and soon to come. There's never been a question, and I have 4 girls at home. Never been a question whether the girls are boys. It's been pretty simple, biologically, anatomically. They behave like girls, they talk like girls, they like girl stuff. My boys are not like that. Very different. But I'm not going to sit around and convince them that if they feel like a boy tonight, they should be a boy. And so all this is to confirm the primary school this week. They're placing the task of gender identity to basically 4-year-olds. We recognize that not all children and young people identify with the gender they're assigned at birth, they say. They may identify the gender other than male or female. However, the current system only records male or female, they say. This is in a school district in that area. Another parent says, please support your child to choose their gender identity they identify with the most. So we're going to let them choose. This is a toolkit. You take it home and you discuss it with your kids and you promote it. And of course, this has brought some in the area to fight against it and to bring about the reality. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to tell my 4-year-old if they're a boy. I'm not going to tell them that they're a girl. Now, I'm going to say this, and it's I usually don't say this, but and I don't enjoy it. I believe that in our nation we will see at some point the legalization of pedophilia, and the lowering of the age of consent. I'm not a prophet nor the son of a prophet, but I think those two things are inevitable based on the current circumstances that we face. Pedophilia has already been discussed in symposiums and conferences in England, in the U.S., that we shouldn't criminalize it. Because if we let people love who they love, if that man wants to love a child, he can love a child. I mean, who are we to say, right? That is sick. It is sick. But don't we do that already? I mean, don't we say love has no gender, love has no race, love has no age, and if you feel like you love someone that's, different than you and all this stuff, and so it has opened the door for that to happen. Now, I never thought in my day and age Mambla was going to be an actual social club instead of a sickle club, but that's what has been happening. And the age of consent, you already have Ginsburg, the court official, the Supreme Court official, who already talked about it 2 years ago, that, the age of consent's too high. We need to lower it. And, if a 7-year-old feels like she's 29, then she should be 29. No, she didn't say that. I did. But that's what they're saying. If you feel like a woman, you should go into the woman's bathroom. If you feel like you're 29 and you're 7, you should feel 29. Who am I to say? Right? But remember that video I showed you on this campus of Washington? Hey, if you feel a 6'5" Chinese woman and you feel like that, be that. I'm not going to tell you no. I'm going to tell you you're wrong. And we have lost our mind. We've lost our mind. And that's where it's headed. Reprobates with kids and we don't protect our women, we don't protect our kids. And the majority of the church is silent and AWOL. Shame. Shame on us, but shame on the pastors as well. Now let's continue on. An openly gay Missouri state representative told a Foreign Bureau staff member that her support for pro-marriage amendment to the state constitution could result in the loss of federal subsidies to her organization. All that to say is, if you don't support gay marriage, and if you're pro-marriage and you receive federal funding, at least in Missouri, they're threatening not to give you federal funding. Now, we all know what happened to Curt Schilling this past week, right? Curt Schilling, no, you don't know who he is. All right. Curt Schilling was a baseball pitcher. He's a commentator for the ESPN, used to be. He posted on his Facebook that he wasn't pro-gay marriage or transgender bathroom thingy bill. And he wasn't for it. And he used some interesting illustrations on it. Well, ESPN got a hold of it and fired him. No questions asked. You're done. Now, don't think it's just this, if you can't express your opinion, you may or may not like how he illustrated it. There's nothing foul about it. It was just Curt Schilling, just your opinion. We'll value your opinion, right? But now it's costing you your job. It's costing you federal funding. It's costing you things that you never thought possible, that the First Amendment would actually be destroyed this way. This is an interesting thing regarding media. 6% of America trust the media. 6% of America trust the media. I don't know who those 6% are, but I want to talk to them about that. And it's actually lower than what the confidence is about Congress. And it's a very interesting article. I don't want to go into it, but it's basically how young people, how you receive the media now, how you perceive media and perceive truth and perceive whether they're telling you the truth or not. And this goes into the 18 to 20-year-olds, the 18 to 40-year-olds, all of us young. It's different. It's not Walter Cronkite, telling us the truth. He wasn't telling us the truth, but it's not him anymore. It's different media, it's different outlets. This is an interesting one. The first transgender Baptist pastor. I have his name here. His name is Daniel Robinson. Used to be, because he likes to be called Allison now. He likes to be called Allison now. Or she used to be called Daniel. And he's Allison, and she's Daniel. Or he's Allison. Anyway. Mr. Daniel Allison Robinson has been studying at Baylor University for the ministry, and where he found to be wrestling with his gender identity. And one day, in his early seminary day, he contemplated suicide. But an angel of God came. An angel of God came and reasoned with him. And he told him that to stop. And he said, well, what if God hasn't fixed me? Because what if God hasn't fixed me? And he said, well, because you're not broken, the angel said. And Robinson heard that in himself, and that can't be true, he said. The Bible says I'm broken. And the angel said, what if the Bible is wrong? And what if you've been reading it wrong? And of course, on and on he went, and you can find his story there. And he's now openly first transgender Baptist pastor. And he calls the angel of reason. He says, an angel of reason visited me and told me the Bible was wrong, and I was right, and I'm not broken, and I could be Allison. And yeah. Now, it's interesting to say, this is not the first case. This is the first openly. There's been others, so to speak. But let me tell you about another person, and Walt Heyer. Anybody know who Walt Heyer is? Walt Heyer is 75 years old, and he had a sex change around 1980 as a Christian. And he realized it was wrong, and he reverted back. He reverted back to become a biological gender man, and he now leads a ministry. He shares his story around the world of how God redeemed his life from transgenderism. Nobody's born a transgender, he says. They are manufactured as a result of something, a development childhood issue that has yet to be determined for many people. All of them have some kind of level of depression, and we're not treating them. He lamented, we're just cutting off body parts and giving them a name and a new gender. God designed us as men and women. He has a video recorded, and God will redeem the lives of people who struggle with this identity, just like I did. He redeemed my life, and I've been free from it as a result of that. So for those who just say, well, just let people be free and do whatever they want, here's a man who did it. He's a man who's been there. He's a man who reverted back and said, I was wrong, I repent, and I need to follow God. And he commits his life to helping people get through that. It's really a psychological issue. It's been well known, it's been well documented for many, many years, but now it's a choice or a feeling about our lives. One last thing, and I have a small video that I wanted to show you. This is very encouraging and at the same time very discouraging, if you can balance that out. Muslims around the world are converting to Christ. The problem is they're considered apostates, and they have betrayed Islam, and they're going to be killed. And so they have to examine their challenges, the apostates, what they're facing, and so they are fleeing from the area where they grew up to Europe, as well as Italy, the UK. In fact, Islam has a very intolerant law against apostates. I mean, if you're Muslim and you convert to Christianity. And by the way, do you know Muslims do not persecute Muslims who attend church? Muslims don't persecute Muslims who even say Christian things. Do you know when they start persecuting Muslims? What's the one step that a Muslim does that they begin to persecute as an apostate? No. Baptism. Baptism. See, they understand baptism much better than we do. They know when that happened, he is no longer the same person, and he needs to be killed according to the law. So a Muslim can attend church, no problem, could say Christian things, could even say, I accepted Jesus. It's all words. But when a Muslim is baptized in the name of Jesus, it is open war. They understand, it's a Middle Eastern culture. They understand what baptism is more than we do. But nonetheless, a lot of them are in Italy. Ironically, they have been threatened and disrespected, and there is a calling for believers to pray for them, because over thousands of Muslims who converted to Christianity from Islam currently live in Italy, and they hide their conversions for the fear of retaliation, because you know what's happening in Europe, and they feel very threatened because they know we just fled there, and now it's back in. Now it's in our new home, and we can't be outspoken about it because our country's being basically overthrown by Muslims. And so they ask for prayer. But the encouraging thing is, it's working. It's working. Muslims are getting saved and coming to Christ. They may be silent witness about it. They may be in difficult situations because of facing death. But the Lord is doing something within the Muslim community. Pray and pray and pray hard. And I could guarantee you, without being a prophet again, that there are also many Muslims who have come to Christ already in our country who are very, very quiet about it because our government is very pro-Muslim and anti-Christianity. And they would not be seen. They don't want to be seen as that because there's some, as many people know, there's been some crimes in America done against Muslims who have come to Christ. It's just very hush-hushed in our country. So, Sergio, when you're ready to go, I want to play you this video. It's this fascinating video. It's about 3 minutes long, and it's about Europe and how Europe has been invaded, not only by Islam, but it first started with paganism. It started with paganism, and he's going to show some very, very interesting footage of how Europe began, the European Union, worshiping paganism. Whenever you're ready, Serge. If you need light, oh, you have light.
I'm in the European quarter of Brussels, looking for a mythical woman who has become an emblem of the European Union. And here she is. She's called Europa. She's hanging onto a bull. And the building behind her houses both the European Council and the Council of the European Union. Note that she has not taken the bull by the horns, she's clinging on for dear life. In the Greek myth, the god Zeus took a fancy to Europa, a Phoenician princess. He transformed himself into a white bull and made sweet lowing noises. Naturally, Europa climbed onto his back and he made off with her, swimming across the ocean to Crete where he raped her. The continent of Europe was named after her sometime during the 8th century. It so happens that Europe is Europa in the vast majority of European languages. Europa.eu is the European Union's official website. Europa on the bull has been on an Italian and a Greek €2 coin and a UK stamp. Europa herself is on the Europa series of banknotes, while the bull alone is on EU residence permits throughout the European Union. On the 5 stars are the Hyades, the head of the Taurus, the bull constellation in astrology. So Europa on the bull has become a kind of unofficial symbol of the EU. She's even depicted on a mural inside the Paul-Henri Spaak Parliament building here in Brussels. Another statue of her is outside the main entrance of the European Parliament in Strasbourg. Here we see the steel bull lowing, the bronze Europa about to be abducted, and curiously 10 glass rings around the back parts of the bull, calling to mind the 10 rings around the, as it were, finished parts of the European Parliament building itself. But why 10? There were 6 founding members of the European Economic Community and 12 founding members of the European Union, including the UK. There are 12 stars on the EU flag. 10 means nothing in the EU. So are the 10 rings an allusion to another demonic animal? In the Bible, in chapter 17 of the Revelation to John, he saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-coloured beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Verse 12 says the 10 horns are 10 kings, 10 earthly rulers. So what are the parallels between Europa and the woman, the bull and the beast? Firstly, the Apostle John's audience will have identified the woman as the Roman Empire. Her description in verse 5 as mystery, Babylon the Great, shows a link back to the book of Daniel and continuity with the spirit of all earthly totalitarian dominions. She is sat on the beast. She is not controlling his direction. Just like Europa on the bull, she is going wherever he wants. Secondly, in chapter 2 of Revelation, Pergamos, the town of one of the 7 churches, is said to be the site of Satan's seat. Satan's seat was an altar to Zeus. So Zeus is a spiritual manifestation of Satan, just like the Antichrist beast of Revelation. The beast, in whatever form he appears, is the demonic spiritual power behind Babylon, Persia, the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, and any new earthly political empire which rejects God, just as the EU has done in its treaties and its attempted constitution. So it concerns me to see Eurocrats fawning over the image of Europa on the bull. Are they consciously setting up a new Roman Empire? Are they telling the people of Europe we're being taken for a deranged ride? Zeus got Europa on his back by deception. He took her off and violated her. Are we too being lied to about the destination and purpose of the European Union? Or by idolising Europa on the bull, are the EU's leaders even cursing us, inviting Satan and the destruction he brings right into Europe? Because if any of that is the case, I'm not sure I want to be tagging along.